Hi everyone, thank you so much for being with us today, and it's a great pleasure. Today we have a very special guest, and well, today we will be talking about general information regarding the pandemic, obviously, from the US Consulate, and also we will have some interesting information regarding the services of the Consulate. So today I would like to introduce to our speaker. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining us. If you mind presenting yourself.
Thank you, Carlos. This is See Saarnio. I'm the U.S. Consul General in Tijuana, and I am based here in Tijuana with our consulate staff of about 250 people. We have about 50 Americans and about 200 Mexicans who work with us in the consulate. Obviously, we're teleworking now, but we're here going through this COVID pandemic with everyone. We hope all of your friends and your loved ones are safe and staying in house and quarantining and being safe to avoid this pandemic as we're getting into these critical stage here. And we're hoping that everyone is staying informed as well. So we're happy to join you and do this today. We're all learning new things like the new technology, and it's very helpful. Thank you for.
Thank you so. It means a lot to us to have you here. It's an honor, actually, and thank you so much for your time. Well, as you already explained, we have never faced anything like this before. So we have to adapt. We have to change the way that we conduct business, obviously, and we have to be prepared for the following. So as we see, for example, now San Diego is going back to business eventually, and just little by little, and what are the expectations that you have for Tijuana? I mean, since we have this binational region, amazing binational region, in where the collaboration is a key aspect of this region, actually. So, what will be your concerns or your thoughts regarding what we are going to be facing on the following weeks or months?
That's a very good question, Carlos. I think what's interesting about working in the Baja region, and I've been here almost 2 years now, so I can say I feel like one of the borderlanders, and I think one of the most interesting things is how connected the U.S. and Mexico are with our supply chains, and how we're connected culturally and families, and in many ways. And in this health situation, I think the United States is a little bit ahead of Mexico in the outbreak, and so we may have the curve may be flattening in the U.S. side, but in Mexico we're just reaching the peak here. So that's going to create some interesting challenges for us. I think I have a very big appreciation for all the people who work on these cross-border issues and try to make harmonize things so we're going to be working together. But I think we have to stay very closely linked up and stay in touch in the next few weeks and months as we get back to try to get back to what is our new normal after this. In the consulate, we've had to close. We're teleworking. Most of our employees are teleworking, and we're trying to do as much as we can from home. But I think many of the people that you work with and your people who are listening today are in the public service departments, public service sector. We provide services to the public, the Mexican public and the American public. And that's very hard to do when you're not there in person. So I think if we go into the next few weeks, we have to stay closely linked up. And we'll be there from the consulate to try to do that with everyone.
Oh, perfect. That is good information. Thank you, Sue. Well, as you already mentioned, we have a lot of people and organizations joining this effort to continue having this business or this trade in this big community that we have. So in that portion, obviously, the Consulate makes a great job supporting with information, obviously, and also with the services that you already pointed. But I have seen Sue very active in the past. For the last 2 years, I have seen Sue being in meetings, joining conversations, joining discussions, try to further even more this binational community. So from the past, obviously, we have seen a lot of efforts to keep this conversation and also to further even more the binational community. But what are the challenges that you have faced in the past regarding, from your position, what are the challenges that you have faced in the past?
Well, yeah, I think that everyone in the region knows. I think it goes back to the middle of March where we all realized that this was going to be a big health challenge, this pandemic we had to deal with. And if you're a supervisor or you're a president of a company or you're in charge of an organization, we had to, how can we keep our people safe? What do we have to change in the way we're operating to do the essential work that we have to do and still keep our people safe? And I do believe that we can do that. And I think what we've seen the companies in the region do, we've taken major measures. In the consulate, we have reduced our number of people who are coming in every day to about 15% of our staff. We have our essential employees are in the consulate. We have roped off areas of the consulate. We have broken into teams. People are coming in stages and trying to work. And, we've learned, for example, that some of our most important employees are our cleaning staff. We take them home now every day in the motor pool so they don't have to ride in public transportation. And we have made adjustments in our schedules. We've also, we had to close our passport and our visa section, but the most essential visas we issue are the agricultural worker visas for the Mexicans who go to the United States and pick the crops and handle the food that we all eat. And we need to keep the food supply chains moving on both sides of the border. So we are continuing to issue those H-2 visas for agricultural workers, and we are issuing those at the same level we did last year. So it's a challenge, but we think we've adapted, and we're going to have to keep adapting as we move into reopening as well.
Yes, it is true, Sue. We have a different scenario for the following months, actually, or probably years. The COVID actually have changed the way to conduct business, how we go to work even, and how we interact. So we have this exactly very good example. We have now you in this digital media to have this conversation. So, well, that is a new way to do business, but definitely we have to adapt to continue. And in the political aspect, so you have been a very key speaker for the region, and obviously we highly appreciate that, because you have always supported the Maquiladora, and we definitely will continue having this kind of communication with you for the future. And we have some new challenge coming for the future, and we definitely need someone like you, a great leader, to be in our side to continue with the operations of the Maquiladora, definitely. But what will be from the political side, what will be your concept of the following for the following months? What will be your recommendations on the political side? We have seen a lot of information regarding the Maquiladoras, the Ambassador Christopher Landau, and obviously the U.S. government. So from that aspect, just generally speaking, what is your kind of your idea for the following months?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talk about a lot, Carlos, the integrated supply chains in the U.S. and Mexico and Canada. And I have worked on all three countries, and I think one of my colleagues at the embassy in Mexico City described it. We've learned in the last few weeks, Mexico makes not just the widgets that go into the big products, but it makes the widgets that go into the widgets that cross the border several times and go back and forth. And so we have spent a lot of time in the last few weeks talking to the U.S. companies that work in Mexico, and we've been trying to clarify for them what is an essential company on the U.S. side, what is an essential company on the Mexican side, how do we make sure that we keep those supply chains moving, and now we're looking particularly in the auto sector. You can't build a car in the United States if you don't have parts from Mexico to build them. So we're talking about how do we ramp back up again production, and that has to be coordinated. And Ambassador Landau had been very clear. He said, we recognize the concerns for Mexico as far as the health and safety of its workers, and there's nothing more important to the U.S. companies but safety of their workers, because they need to have that to be able to build their products. But we also have to be able to keep the supply chain going at the same time we're protecting their health and safety. And that's one thing I think that I have been very impressed, especially with the American companies I've talked to. They have said the extra measures they're taking to keep everybody healthy, the cleaning procedures, the separating procedures, providing transportation, all of those things. Many of these companies operate in China as well, and so they know very well what kind of procedures they need to have. And I've been very impressed hearing what their health protocols are and what we have to do. And I think our task for us ahead is to work with the trade associations, Index and DATEC, the aerospace cluster, folks who've been working on this to clarify. I've worked for many years on the idea of regulatory harmonization. If I'm a religious zealot on any issue, it's that we need to have our regulatory systems aligned as well as our trading systems. And I think this is a good example for what we have to work on going forward, is we need to work on these policy changes to make sure that our regulatory systems are lined up so that the trade can move and it moves across the borders without delays. So. That is
actually great to hear. And in the point of view of having these maquiladoras very rapidly adapting to the new way of providing this safety environment to the workers, like as you already mentioned, having the filters at the entrance of the facility, having the cleaning process, and keeping the logs of every aspect of the facility. So that is actually a key aspect that we have seen here in Baja, and is probably one of the most considerable ways of taking care of the workers. It's just, I'll say it this way, it's probably safer to be working in the maquiladora than probably at home. Because in the maquiladora they keep a very good scenario, helping, cleaning, and screening all kind of issues. So it's probably safer. So I completely agree with you. So in other hand, so what will be your idea regarding the companies that are currently having a facility in Asia, probably in China, and considering moving those facilities to Mexico? Probably because they don't want to compromise the supply chain for in one way, or to have at least two different regions supplying for their materials. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right on that, Carlos. I think we were hearing from people even before the COVID crisis hit that more companies were looking at coming back to North America. I think the passage of the new USMCA is a big draw for those companies. I think there were concerns with the trade disputes that the U.S. and China were having, that it makes more sense for them to be closer to home, to be working closer to the U.S. border. And I think that that's a big opportunity for Mexico, and particularly for the border states, to look at attracting some of that business and bringing them back. I think how Mexico, handles that is a big challenge, but I think that you're ready for that, and we'll be working alongside you, trying to make that work in the months ahead.
Thank you, Sue. We count on you. So thank you for that. And well, Sue, thank you so much for that kind of information. But we have some other questions that people was referring to us regarding the services that the consulate. So I don't know if you have any other different comment before we answer these kind of questions, or can we jump to the questions?
I would like to say just that we are available for emergency services. We know some people have had their passports expired during this crisis, their visas have expired, and we do provide emergency services. If you have an emergency, you need to have things, you can contact us through our website. There's a connection. You can send a message and saying, we need some help. We also do provide for American citizens 24-hour services on our I can give the 800 or our local number. It's 8141605512, And we've also encouraged the U.S. citizens to sign up for the State Department Smart Travel. That's at step.state.gov. And if you sign up for that to say that you're traveling in Mexico, you're going to Mexico, you can list certain dates, and they will start sending you our embassy's health guidance. The State Department has issued a level 4 health advisory, and you can get daily updates, not daily, twice a week or so. The embassy sends out updates with lots of very good health tips about the situation in Mexico and what to do. And so, if you need information from us, we are available on an basis, and you can reach us through that phone number or also through our website.
Okay, that is perfect. So we will post the phone number again. So if anyone has any questions or any comments, we will definitely post it so any can actually reach you. So thank you so much for that information, Sue. So the first questions that we have from the people over there is, we noticed already from your comments that the consulate changed the way of obviously doing business on a daily basis. So can you give us a little bit more information? How did you change the way of doing business on a daily basis?
Well, yeah, as of mid-March, we had instructions from Washington and Mexico City that we should send as many employees home as possible to telework. So we had to cancel our public interviews for the passports and the visas and the consular reports of birth and all of the paperwork that our consulate provides. And most people are working at home, who can telework at home or working. You can see my home office behind me.
Yes.
And it's been a change for everybody. We had to upgrade our computer connections with Washington and with Mexico City. And I think now people are getting used to it, but you wouldn't be surprised to see my dog or, other parts of my kids run past here while I'm working here. And I think we all have learned to adjust to that. Webinars and Zoom calls are now the new way of doing business. But we are trying to maintain our basic services, like I said, to issue the agricultural worker visas. And we will be planning now in the next few weeks, how do we ramp back up again? How do we start slowly when the crisis has passed here? And then, we are also, monitoring the governor's daily press briefings where they provide the information of what's happening in Baja. We're also watching the humanitarian deliveries that are being made and, seeing what kind of protective gear they need and what kind of equipment is needed in Baja. I've had a lot of calls from the humanitarian groups in the U.S. that want to come to Baja to help out. They see that the situation is worse here in Baja than other parts of Mexico, and they're asking how they can help. And so we're trying to stay in touch and be a point of contact for the American groups who want to come down here. They want to know if it's safe to come back. Is it safe to get back into business? And we're trying to be that point of contact for them.
And thank you for that, Sue, because actually, as you already mentioned, we need a lot of support here in Baja. Obviously, the health services are very, very, very crowded now. And definitely any kind of articles and support, it will be very welcome. So thank you for giving us that kind of lead for those persons over there. So thank you so much for that. And we have another question. For certain non-emergency consular services that stopped during this situation, during the pandemic, when we can expect to have those visa interviews and passport interviews back online or back on the consulate?
Yeah, I wish I knew that myself. We don't have a set date yet. I think what we are being told is that worldwide, the State Department is going to be gearing back up, but in collaboration with whatever the local situation is. So we would obviously be following the advice from the Mexican federal government and state government on when it is safe to start having people work again. In general, I think the kind of advice we've been given is you need to see 14 days of a downward trajectory in the number of cases of COVID before you can actually plan to bring people back to the office. And then we've been told to plan it for a staged, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 over a 60-day period, depending on how the cases are going. So if the case numbers go back up, then you slow it down again. If it goes down steadily, you can allow more opening. I think what we'll be seeing this gradually in California and the border states, and we can follow. You can kind of get a foreshadowing by looking ahead of what's happening in California, where they just opened some of the outdoor beaches and outdoor things. I think you'll see that as well with the government on the U.S. side, but we don't have a date yet, and I think it's a little too early to actually try to predict a date when that will be. We'll be able to do that. But in the meantime, you can contact us on our emergency line, and we will consider cases that are medical emergencies, of course, things like that we will look at.
Okay, well, sounds perfect. We will keep the audience very noted regarding if we have new information. So we will post it, obviously, so everybody can know where the services are going back as normal. Okay, thank you, Sue, for that information. We have another question. As you know, Tijuana, in the border, obviously, we have a lot of port of entries, for example, San Isidro and Otay. And some restrictions has been made for non-essential travel since late March. So what are the common misconceptions or misaspects for essential and non-essential regarding going to the U.S.? So can you give us a little bit more information regarding that?
Yeah, I think this is something that I think worked very well. I have to say we coordinated this in advance with first the Canadian government and then the Mexican government. And I think we agreed, right now is not the time for tourists to be going sightseeing in California or in Mexico. We want people to stay close to home. And yet we want to be able to allow the cross-border trade to move. So things like truck drivers are allowed to go across, emergency personnel, people going for medical appointments. Those are obviously essential things. What we don't want to see, and I think it's quite amazing that even for Mother's Day in Mexico, we were advising people not to go visit their mothers because they didn't want to infect them with the germs. So I think, we need to put those things off, the non-essential trips, delay those as long as we can, do the things that have to get across the border. And I think it's worked pretty well. I think people in general, people who are going to work in the United States, going to essential businesses, those people should be still allowed to cross. But people who can delay these until where it's a little safer period, I think that's fair for people to ask, and I think people have been very good at observing that as well.
Okay, well, thank you for the clarification on that. And we have another question. As we discussed a little bit on the conversation, we have here Ambassador Landu to tell U.S. citizens to consider going back to the United States. Why is that kind of advice to the generals, to the general public?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, but some people have taken this the wrong way. So what the ambassador said was, if you're a tourist of Mexico, it's time to go home. And I guess, obviously, the situation in the border states is a little bit different because we were watching the number of plane flights reduce. For example, if you were in Cabo or La Paz, it's harder to get home if there's no planes. It's a much longer drive home than it is from Ensenada or Rosarito or Tijuana. So I think what the ambassador was trying to say there is, if you're a tourist in Mexico, time to think about going home. If you're a U.S. citizen and you reside in Mexico and that's your permanent house, be prepared to stay for the long haul because this is where you live, obviously. But if you have an option, you have another home in the States, it was the time to go home. And that was the message we've been telling folks for a little over a month now. And we think that has pretty good help. But we also realize that in the border region, there are many American citizens, legal permanent residents, people who cross the border regularly to go to their jobs and things. And that's, as long as people are aware of their the situation, we recognize that. We're not telling them they have to obviously evacuate Mexico. We know that they live here and work here and reside here, and we're learning how many of those are. We think there's probably something like 260,000 Americans living here, and that's a guess, don't know for sure, but we're getting more and more contact with them. More and more people are registering with the STEP, so we know that they're here, and that's one of the reasons we encourage people to register if they're actually resident in Mexico.
Okay, well, that's a very clear information. Thank you for that, Sue. Now we know the truth. And another question that we have from the audience, it says, now that San Diego is starting to relax and move restrictions away, what kind of advice can you give to the U.S. citizens and permanent residents when they want to travel north? What will be your advice on that?
Well, again, I would say right now we're still encouraging people to stay home and stay close to their families and not cross, because when you cross, you take with you your germs, either from the United States back to Mexico, or from Mexico to the United States. So right now, I think it's a very critical time for Baja California, and we would like to respect the local officials' request that people stay home. It's getting harder. We realize the nicer weather, people want to get out, but we still think for now that people should stay, closer to their homes and make plans for later. But I think we are starting to plan for when we will reopen. I think that's the light at the end of the tunnel. In the long view of history, this will be a short period of time. It seems like a long time now to say, stay home, don't go to work, don't do things. But in the long stream of history, we're doing things to keep things safer for our loved ones. And I think that's got to be still the priority for a while longer.
Definitely. I completely agree with you, Sue. Thank you. And the final question that we have here is, regarding the medical tourism. So it says, tourism is a very basic and essential element for the economies of Baja. So what is your prediction for the future of visitors coming to Tijuana and to Baja? So what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the medical sector is very important for this community, and it's been amazing for me to see how many Americans do cross every day just to go to the doctor or to visit their local medical facilities. I think that, like everything else, will ramp up slowly as we get moving into the period where we can allow that. I think right now it's still for people to think they should just come down. I don't think people should be going to cross just to go to see the dentist, for example. I think that's something you can put off. There'll be a lot of people with overdue dentist appointments when this is all done. But I think we can catch up on those kinds of things after the crisis.
Definitely we will, and thank you for that. And just regarding, within the same question, but just regarding the general tourism. So, for example, if people wants to go to the Valle de Guadalupe or any kind of that places for sightseeing, for general tourism, what will be your comments on that?
Well, but that's part of the reason I wanted to come to Baja California, was to be able to visit places like that. And I think one of my last trips before all of this, the weekend before everything got shut down, I was down in the Valle, and it was lovely. I think one of the strongest reasons that we should be staying home now is so that when things are loosened up, we can get out. I think we need to keep everybody healthy now, so that we can deal with this crisis now, so that we can get back out to the beaches and get back out to the Valle and down to Cabo and La Paz and the beautiful places in Baja Sur. I'm looking forward to getting back out there. I've talked to the ambassador about coming out to visit, and he has committed to helping Mexico get his tourism industry back on track when this crisis is over. And we'll look to that as soon as we can, as soon as it's safe.
Oh, well, thank you, Sue. That's very clear. We are about to conclude, Sue, so I don't know if you have any other questions or any other comments that you want to give to the general audience. So,
Well, major thing I want to say to everyone is, we're in this together in the border region. Pandemics cross borders. It's like the air we breathe. It's the water we drink. It crosses the border, and we have a shared interest in keeping everybody safe. So just everyone be safe out there. I love the fact that the Mexican hero for all of this is Susana Distancia, as I like to think of her as my tocaya. And I wish everybody a safe and enjoy this time with your families, and stay safe while we're going through this crisis, and hopefully we'll get through it together.
Thank you, Sue. That's a very good message to conclude. And to the audience, we have today a very special leader for the region. Thank you so much, Sue, for being with us today. We highly appreciate your comments, obviously the information that you share with us. You have been a great leader for us. So thank you so much for that, and also for your staff, which is always working behind the scenes and trying to even furthermore. So thank you so much for that. And to our friends on the social networks, thank you so much for being with us today. And we will see you tomorrow with more information. My name is Carlos Higuera, President of Tijuana IDC. And take care, be safe, and see you tomorrow.